Well, moving on to our next session, and it's another fireside chat on the importance of Digital India Industry Partnership, where we explore the crucial role of collaboration in driving digital transformation and impact in the country. Let me invite our panelists for the fireside. We have with us Mr. Arvind Gupta, co founder and head Digital India Foundation. Arvind Gupta is the head and co founder of Digital India Foundation, a policy think tank working in areas of digital inclusion, smart cities, internet governance, data privacy, and cybersecurity, and electronics manufacturing. He is an adjunct professor at IIT BHU teaching data and digital economy. He dons many hats of innovation, evangelist, technology, entrepreneur, and policy advisor. Till the time the setup is happening, he is going to be in conversation with Mr. Som Satsangi, the Senior Vice President and MD at HPE India. As India Managing Director and a Senior Vice President, Som Satsangi leads HPE's second largest employee base globally. He is responsible for delivering on the vision of leveraging technology to advance the way we live and work, ensuring excellence to our customers and fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation. With more than 3 decades of experience in the IT sector, including the last 2 decades of handling various leadership roles at HPE, Som is passionate about creating an inclusive digital ecosystem. Over to you, sir, for this conversation.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think since morning, and I must thank PG and DataQuest team, the theme of this conference is amazing. And probably I've taken a lot of notes throughout all the session. Every session and every interaction were really very, very intuitive and thought-provoking that how India can be superpower when you look our Honorable Prime Minister vision of 2047. And many of the discussion what we had, whether you look from how we can be the global application leaders from the app modernization for the global perspective, generative AI, such a great thought. And probably that's going to transform because that's going to be the biggest disruptor according to me in the technology industry, which is going to happen. And some of the work, semicon, which is such an important topic today, that how we can import reduce the import bill, and that's again a big vision from our Honorable Prime Minister and some of the work some of the companies are doing. And talent, and Shank, we have, this is one topic probably which is in the top of mind of every CEO, that how you can have the reskilling the current talent, because what was applicable 5 years down the line may not be applicable when the generative AI come in place kind of thing. And we can't remove those talent. We have to reskill kind of things. Very good discussion. Quantum, I think it's important to demystify the quantum, which is very, very important. And I think the team did a phenomenal job. And e-commerce is no brainer with the India, these things, with 1.2 billion citizens coming, and everybody's trying to use the e-commerce. Probably that's a platform, and how through the ONDC we are going to take that thing to the global level. So it's indeed my pleasure to welcome Mr. Arvind Gupta. And probably Arvind Gupta is no stranger to the industry. And starting from his MyGov in 2018 to now becoming the co-founder and head of the Digital India Foundation, probably I think this is going to be the great session to understand how the Digital India and the industry can collaborate together. And without further ado, let me ask the first question, Arvind, from you, because starting from being the CEO of the MyGov in 2018 to become the head of the Digital India Foundation, what was the journey and how do you think that it has impacted the government, and more importantly, how it has impacted the industries and also the common citizen?
Yeah, thank you, Som, and thank you, PG and DataQuest for having me here. I have to start with even way back from 2018. Actually, I have to start from first week of February. Som may remember, PG may remember the exact date when the current Prime Minister, then was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he gave the slogan of Digital India. and it was at one of the Data Quest events only. eh, 17 January 2014 at the Grand, which is now that time was called the Grand Hyatt, and today is the Grand. This journey has been, as you said, 10-year-old journey, and it is something that uh, was set in motion by the vision of the Prime Minister, which was 10 years ago, had a couple of components to it. And broadly, let's say three components: providing cheap access to digital, the highway, as a tool of empowerment to the citizens. So that was done. And in 2014, we had about 15 crore people connected to the internet. Today, that number is close to 90 crores. In millions, it was 150 million. Today is 900 million. So 6x in about 10 years. The cost of data in 2014 was about $4 per GB. Today, it is 10 cents, even not that much per GB per month. So you see the transformation from being 155th in the data consumption in the world. So Indians were the 155th lowest in data consumption in the world. Today, we are the top per capita data consumption in the world at the lowest cost. That is the transformation that has happened in 10 years. So basically, we have addressed one big problem of giving access to people. The second challenge was that we have to provide literacy and instruments for the citizens. And the cost of the connectivity was one side, but the cost of the instrument, which is the phone or the laptop or the instrument, was very high. Now, over time, due to PLI schemes that you have talked about, our second highest import bill in 2014 was the electronics import bill after oil. Today, that is no longer the case. Today, actually, we export, by the way, about $12 billion worth of smartphones every year. So, and again, through the intervention of the industry, you talked about public-private partnership, through government with policy making and PLIs, from being a net importer to being a net exporter in electronics is a classic example. And that has also brought down the cost of the instrument, the computing instrument in the hands of people. The third was to create a lot of literacy, right, amongst people. So we launched the National Digital Literacy Mission, which was, targeted to create 50 million families having at least one. We have by far surpassed that. 50 million. India has 250 million families, by the way. And again, I can talk numbers about everything. 250 million households. Today, we are very clear, very proud to say that there is at least one digitally collected person in 90% of those households. It's no longer 50 million, it's 222 crore families have a digitally connected person in their household. And that's a big number. And that is what were the three fundamental pillars to the question that you're asking. The journey that started in 2014, it's still not ending. And now it is going to the next level. Why it is going to the next level? Today, out of the 5 trillion economy that the PM is projecting over the next couple of years, 1 trillion will come from digital. That's 20% of our GDP coming from digital economy that is represented by the industry sitting in this room. Now, that was never thought before. That was never thought as a focus area. It was the biggest revenue earner from exports, but never, I always used to say 98% of digital in India was exports, 2% was domestic. Today, that's no longer the equation. I mean, the exports will probably go to 250 billion or so, but there is still $1 trillion. That means $750 billion is all this other industry that is happening locally. So that gives you the idea about where we come. Of course, we have taken a lot of steps in between, and I can talk about that, but just to give you an idea.
I think it's great. Arvind, you know that today India has become really a digital powerhouse for the globally. Some of the work, what we have done, and the entire India stack, you start looking from whether DigiLocker or Aadhaar or UPI or payment system. And I think every day, whenever any of us are transacting, we are transacting to the entire this digital infrastructure and digital workplace what has been created. Now, how do you think that industry and the government can work towards it to make it more competitive and more affordable? So today we keep talking that roughly around 200 or million citizens keep having this digital interaction. How we can take it from this $200 million to let's say 700 or 800 million, Any thought and how the industry can collaborate along with the government and ministry on this entire digital India drive?
So now, Som, you come to the next very big part. So while we had created the market, which is the 900 million consumers, most of them having a bank account, by the way, which was using digital technology. Today, also, when I talk about digital connectivity at a household level being 90-95%, we also know banking at a family level is also almost 99%. Now, why this is important is suddenly the consumer has a power to pay and buy. For e-commerce, that becomes very important. For mobility, that becomes very important. For any digital transaction, having a instrument to pay becomes very important. Now, you raised a number which I'll correct a little bit. In India, every month, 400 million people either buy or sell or transfer money using UPI every month. But that number is still less because 900 million people have a smartphone. So the question is, how can we make the 400 million to 900 million, almost everybody using it at least once in a month? The second is the aspiration of the UPI, for example, which is representative of digital transactions, is not 15 billion a month. It's actually 30 billion by the end of the year. That means a billion transactions a day. So for companies like yourself and all data and storage providers, that's a boon. That is what we are planning for, and that is what is Digital India is all about. Explosion at a rate that one had never imagined. You talked about the journey, and I have to give this one number. In 2016, when we launched UPI, when nobody knew UPI, it was success only because of the participation of the private sector and public sector together. But we used to do 100,000 transactions a month, 100,000 transactions a month, 0.1 million, right? If you have mathematicians in the room, can you calculate? We are doing 15,000 million a month now. So that is 15,000, 1.5 lakh times is what the transaction load we are handling from October 2016 to February 2024. So that's the volume growth. It's enabled by private participation. Every bank, every company, startups, they're all working on what is now the digital public infrastructure. You talked about DigiLocker. Without DigiLocker, you can't onboard customers at lower cost. So this digital public infrastructure has been our biggest success story for over the last 3 years. Not because it only started 3 years ago, but because India got the global attention during COVID, how it implemented direct benefits transfers, how it implemented COVID vaccines, and that was all done at the backbone of digital public infrastructure, which has two basic principles I must share. Equal access to all, which basically means startups, society, government, and industry all get equal access. Two, frugal innovation, non-rent seeking frugal innovation. These are two core principles. Abhi Saransh was here, right, before me. Saransh talked about ONDC. Same principles are being applied to e-commerce now. So when you talk about where are we going to go from here and how industry can participate, industry has to become the formidable force to adopt technology very fast. See where India's big goals are headed to. Whether it's the AI mission or the semiconductor mission or this whole digital public infrastructure movement, and see how they can modify their business plans to come in terms with that. India is going to do it. We are not going to stop. Let me tell you that. People come and tell us, oh, this is a bad idea, it won't work, because we know that's a bad idea for their business. It's not a bad idea for India. So imagine if we would have stopped UPI because Visa and MasterCard said it's a very bad idea. And they said that not once, but 100 times. We didn't stop it. We still went ahead. Of course, we incorporated the best feedback they could get. So India will go ahead and doing what is right for itself, and including in digital India. And private sector had to participate and actually adopt to that. And that's a big opportunity in that.
No, I can correlate, and I'll give you one example because you mentioned about DBT. I still remember it was 2015 when our Honorable Prime Minister launched the Jan Dhan scheme. And we run the largest bank, which is State Bank of India, bank for all Indians. And at that point of time, State Bank of India had just 200 million account, and the infrastructure was able to take only 300 million accounts. I got a call from the chairman of State Bank of India, and this is we have got a directive from PMO and RBI. Can you increase this platform to 2 billion account holders? When I took this data to my worldwide corporate, they said it cannot be done. He said there's no infrastructure on a single instance, single database can go up to 2 billion account holder. Along with TCS and along with our engineering team in our Chennai center, we have got the infrastructure. And today State Bank of India is one of the best example even in HP globally. And that infrastructure can take load of 2 billion account, and we have done the simulation of that.
Well, thank you very much. That's
So that's the power of industry and partnership.
and I did not know the story, but so because we are in conversation, I can respond back by telling you this, that you did a human service to the country, because SBI did not know its own strength,
Yeah.
that they have such a big technology and the technology capability, and they can scale up. And today they're leveraging that. In fact, for people who follow the markets, that Yono bank business app
Yeah.
is actually quite valuable. They say it's actually as valuable, if not more, but pretty close to what SBI's valuation is. It's all a tech business. So I think you've done
No,
a great.
absolutely. And today they have got more than 850 million active account on their
Yes.
system. Okay, so as we move on to the digital transformation journey, I think one thing which is happening is the digital skill enablement and empowerment kind of things. And this is one of the biggest challenges. Today, if you go and ask, let's say, can we get the database guys, can we get some of the DB experts and all, we are really finding a problem. So what government is trying, and I know this is the problem for almost every industry, every enterprises, to get the right skill set. And more newer areas are coming, like cyber is becoming a big thing. Now AI will be coming. So is there anything government is trying to reskill and ensure that we have got a sufficient skill manpower to continue on this digital India drive?
Now, there are, Som, that's a very, very, very valid question. Now, there is no easy answer to that. Industry is grappling with it. Industry associations are grappling with it. NASCOM is grappling with it. I'm sure, and that's a good problem to have. It's a worth the sleepless nights. But what the government can do, of course, increase capacity within certain engineering institutions that are owned and run by the government. But beyond that, it's a lot of participation in the private sector. You asked what the private sector has to do. This is where they need to participate. The quality of education has to go up. Two, it has to be future-looking education. The national education, the NEP has already provided certain windows of how they can be more agile in terms of their framework. The whole NEP framework is more agile. But the bigger thing is on certain critical technologies, the semiconductor mission and the AI mission. Because semiconductor, you cannot build skills overnight. So you'll have to, get some skills from outside, some skills, combine them with the partnership with the global leaders and do that. And this is where you will need really deep skills. Same thing applies with AI. So if you see the AI mission, it talks about how you can build those long-term AI skills, research capabilities, research use cases, the shared computing power for research institutions. Again, you're a compute person, you understand that, and everybody in this room will understand this. The biggest challenge today to building more research, education, and doing experimentation for startups and educational institutions is the availability of large-scale compute systems. That takes about $10 a minute. If you were to run a workload in a hyperscaler, you will run out of money very, very fast. If you were to run a data set to learn how to do things. So the government is intervening where they can intervene in providing shared capacity, and that everybody can become better at that. Certain things the industry will have to do. This is a global problem, by the way. The other challenge in this is, which is not a good, which is not a challenge really, but it's actually a fact. According to a lot of startups and AI experts, 25% of AI code is written in India. Now, this is very interesting when you are writing most of the code, but you're not writing for us. You're writing for somebody else. I mean, I think there is a silver lining there. As the Prime Minister calls it, this is not brain drain, this is brain bank. This brain bank will shift to solving for Indian problems. So some of it will happen the way the startups did in many industries, that instead of working for large corporations, people started creating startups. I think in AI and semiconductors also that will happen, that people will say that we want to shift to a more startup, entrepreneurial, public cause, and solve for that. So talent is a challenge, research is going to be a challenge, and there is a lot of government intervention there, but some of it will, it's not that it's all not very doomsday. There is a lot of silver lining here.
So thanks for that. One more thing, in a digital connected world and with almost 1.2 billion citizens, and you rightly mentioned with almost 400 million citizens transacting on e-commerce and more than 800 million plus on smart mobile, and the estimates is by 2025, India is going to have more than 4 billion plus kind of IoT devices connected onto the network. Security and privacy is becoming a big challenge, and I know almost every country, mature country, they are looking their various framework, various security and privacy framework. I know while Indian government has also done a lot of stuff, but it's still a lot more desire. So any insight which you can provide on that things, what a
This is I think this is where you get sleepless nights, right? This is the biggest challenge: security of your critical infrastructure, security of I mean citizens personal data. Education and literacy plays a lot of role, but we live in very exciting times. 5 years ago, if you met at a global G20 forum or a global leaders forum, cybersecurity would rank, and you ask the G20 group like this, small groups, they would rank cybersecurity as probably their ninth or 10th if there were 10 options priority. Today is number one or two. Between AI, cybersecurity, and supply chain, and then climate and other things become the fourth and fifth. This is the biggest worry globally. This is the world leaders I'm talking about. Now, why, when I'm saying this, I think it's the biggest challenge for every country, because it's become a geopolitical tool. We live, which neighborhood we live in. We have a very exciting neighbor to our north. By the way, our love for them has gone up 1,200 times in the last 3 years. Means that's the amount of extra love we get from our neighbor from the north. Our neighbor from the northwest outsources it to somebody else, and so we are in a very exciting geopolitical location. And still, I think we must thank our experts in India, cybersecurity data experts, that we've not had the kind of incidents that they've managed to protect us very well. But this is a big challenge. This is going to remain a big challenge. The one point I would like to add is that the digital public infrastructure that we have built by design has a lot of security built into it. And because having a layered security architecture and approach helps us prevent some of this cybersecurity challenges. But that's not, having said that, does not mean they can have a very restful sleep. I want them to have a very sleepless nights, keep thinking about it, so that this solves for the future.
So the last point from my side, that our honorable Prime Minister is looking that India should be a digital superpower house by 2047. There's any thought and any one or two point which let's say ministry and the government is looking that industry should be coming forward and doing something differently in India? Because you rightly mentioned there's a lot of things, a lot of code, like 50-60% of the most of the codes are written in the country. So any specific thing you think that industry should be doing differently to become India's superpower house as far as digital and IT infrastructure is concerned?
I think the biggest two things are happening. There is no doubt. There is a difference. There is, and I've always said this, and I'm going to say it again. There are three models that are emerging in the world. Technology models. One model is where, which is a model that, for those of us who have worked and lived in the Silicon Valley, that's technology for profit, the capitalist technology model. That's the Chinese model is technology for surveillance. And that's exactly what they have done: technology for capitalism plus surveillance, even though they're not a capitalist country. India has actually shown a new model for technology. It's a trusted technology model for development, right? Bottom up development. Now that changes everything. I think number one, that is what has caught the fancy of the 150 nations plus in the world. 40 nations have queued up to implement India's DPI in their countries. Number one. So that's a very, so Indian IT industry, Indian, should take these learnings and make it global in Africa and Latin America, the global South as it's called. The second very, very important thing is India is going to remain the talent hub of the world. The talent density in India, we produce more engineers than rest of the world combined. The industry has to make sure that these are more employable and they start doing more value added work, so that they can then transform many things beyond just a few activities. So I think a role of the industry has to be in understanding that India now has the global mind share, leadership mind share in building technology. No longer we are just a back office. We are proud to be a back office also, but not just that. We are doing many other things beyond that.
No, I think I completely agree, Arvind, on that point. Most of the tech industry, I know because I come from the tech industry, that most of the work, what we are doing in the country is the high end of technology development. I can share with you from HP's standpoint, every product and technology which are delivered and produced globally, it is all touched either in Bangalore and Chennai competence centers. So we are on that journey and industry is committed to do that thing. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think you will never get a chance like this thing that with the knowledge of Arvind and the information and the kind of work what we have done in entire the digital transformation journey in India. So if you have any question, probably we can take one or two questions while our time is up, but you will never get this kind of chance again. So
if I could ask, what's the next big idea?
The next big idea doesn't come from me. The next big idea comes from the CEO of the country. And the CEO of the country is already giving you the next big idea. We have to build the semiconductor supply chain in India. We are building on its AI mission, and we are committed to that, right? And you see, India's deep tech capability is getting well funded also. So, technology, Moore's law is totally gone broken, right? If you are going to plan for more than 2 years, you are probably having a wrong plan. But along with that, we have a quantum mission going on. So all these missions require, and then there is a science mission going on, which the whole the national, yeah. So we have many things. If you think about it, the space tech, deep tech, AI, semiconductor, quantum. Now, I think that's a plateful. But is it going to be a plateful 2 years from now? Probably not. We'll have to add more. But for right now, we have lot of serious tech initiatives going on with like-minded partners globally. And along with this 5 big initiatives, we have this whole DPI for the world initiative going on, where we are taking our technology and making it available to the world. So
can we have one more last question?
Any more questions in the house?
No, if not, please give a round of applause.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.